Hello, and welcome to video 6 of this 8-part video series. Everything you need to know to heal your trauma and be the trauma boss so that your trauma doesn't boss you around for life. So, stage 3 healing, part 2. We are really going to talk about integrating change, and I want to give you some exercises. So, let's share the screen and get going. Here we go. So we're talking about these 3 stages of healing, right? The stage 1 is the grounding strategies to restore homeostasis is where you're focusing. The stage 2 is shifting your limiting beliefs, right? Letting go of patterns of behavior and developing new, more supportive belief systems. And stage 3, right, is integrating the new beliefs with new behaviors. Sometimes we do deeper trauma healing interventions. That would be when you would do your somatic interventions or your EMDR interventions or emotional freedom techniques. Those deeper interventions, when you're in the stage 3 healing process, can be very, very effective. You know, you're regulated, you have the ability to, we call it resourcing therapy. So you have the ability to revisit trauma and move through the emotion quickly. You're not getting stuck in the emotion. You know, remember, you're stuck in anxiety or you're stuck in depression. And so when you are healing, you're moving through the emotions faster. You're not stuck in them, right? So therapy involves a treatment plan, right? And it involves commitment to yourself and it involves pacing your experience. So you want to be aware of these 3 stages. I love this quote here, right? I think the reason people think their partner can be their therapist is because they think therapy is just talking about feelings. Therapy is not just talking about feelings, it's a treatment plan. Psychology is science. So having someone listen to you vent is not the same as creating a plan to heal trauma. And hopefully you're getting a feel for why that is so, right? All right. So gratitude and the hypothalamus. Remember we talked about the hypothalamus, that it's that stoplight that will engage when your nervous system gets kicked up, and then your hypothalamus gives the stoplight, and then you get into that instinctive emotional loop. That reactive brain takes over, right? So the good news, right? Good news. The feeling of gratitude turns the stoplight green. Awesome. So the hypothalamus is deactivated by engaging a gratitude practice. So you can try a gratitude journal daily, right? Remember though, you have to feel grateful, not just be thinking of things to be grateful for. And I know that was for me kind of a sticky point when I was learning about gratitude. I was like 19 and I wasn't quite sure what I had to be grateful for. So I did a lot of like, I should be grateful for this, I should be grateful for that, and not really thinking about, what do you feel grateful for? Maybe you feel grateful for that cup of water, right? Maybe you feel grateful for, like I said, the beautiful flowers that my mom provided as a backdrop out of her garden, right? Maybe you just feel grateful in general that you have food on the table during COVID. Maybe you feel grateful that, that your kids are healthy, right? Maybe, I don't know, whatever it might be. You want to feel grateful, not just list what you ought to be grateful for, okay? So when you feel the gratitude and you stay with those emotions of goodness, of joy, of happiness, right? It's actually very therapeutic and healing for that 3rd stage neuroplasticity work that you're doing. So you take a few extra seconds to stay with positive experience, even the comfort in a single breath, right? You'll help turn a passing mental state into a lasting neural structure, right? Beautiful. So should I say more about that? I feel like I ought to say more about that. So the mental state, gratitude, right? The mental state, happiness, joy. It doesn't have the neural structure often to support it with trauma. Remember, you're used to maybe dysregulated thought processes, which are different. So you're trying to create a new neural structure to support this mental state of peace and calm and feeling grounded and connected in your reflective brain, in that part of your brain that is optimistic. Maybe it's unfamiliar to you. So I just want to be clear, I'm not talking about the toxic positivity or the spiritual bypass. So toxic positivity is just another form of toxicity, right? We're just being positive despite everything that's going on around us. That's not what we do. We recognize what's happening. We recognize that it's something that we all go through, shared humanity. And we have compassion for ourselves, right? So take some time right now, press pause on the screen if you need to, and write down 3 things that you actually really feel grateful for. You can really breathe deep while you're thinking of things that you feel grateful for. It's a nice way to get yourself grounded. You can put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Remember, that's a quick and easy regulation strategy. What do you feel grateful for? You could do a self-compassion gesture to try and tap into what you might feel grateful for. Maybe you want to hug on yourself, right? Maybe you just want to cross it over. There are all ways to tap into what you feel grateful for. So I don't want to ruin it by telling you mine. I just want you to tap into what yours are. So self-compassion is key, right? It's a huge field of research. Dr. Kristen Neff has her website full of great information. But self-compassion, right? It's acknowledgement of your suffering as part of the human experience, right? It's not something that you're in alone, right? Suffering it's pretty universal, right? That's why I say what's most personal is often most universal. So the key really is to forgive yourself for not knowing better at the time, right? Forgive yourself for giving away your power. Forgive yourself for past behaviors. Forgive yourself for the survival patterns and traits you picked up while enduring trauma. Forgive yourself for being who you needed to be. Right? Self-compassion is not self-pity. There is a big difference, right? And so when we talk about healing from complex trauma, PTSD, CPTSD, I want to acknowledge all the many complex trauma survivors who do not have the best case scenario for healing. Many do not have a safe, supportive partner, or a caring, supportive family, or an adequately trained, experienced therapy team. And these issues can affect the capacity for complex trauma survivors to fully heal. So, whilst full healing and recovery may be possible for some, it may not be for others. And these issues that can hinder healing are not any fault of the survivor. So, to all those who don't have a best case scenario, please know I acknowledge and understand how much harder this journey is. So, in contrast to 25 years ago, trauma treatment today focuses on survivors, not on pain. Right? We focus on accessing the kinds of feelings they would have experienced if they'd never been traumatized. Okay. So we aren't looking for those cathartic experiences where we're digging for the trauma, right? We're trying to figure out, who are you because of the trauma and who do you want to be? What is your authentic self, right? So we're talking about a strengths-based, resilience-based model. And regulation of the nervous system is key. I love this. Keep calm and activate your parasympathetic nervous system when in doubt, right? So regulating the nervous system involves recognizing positive states of being, right? We want to restore homeostasis. And it also allows you to access your reflective brain rather than your reactive brain, right? So literally, you can picture your brain forming these new neural connections as you meet the challenge and learn and keep going, right? You know what the neurons look like. So strengthening your parasympathetic nervous system is a great place to start. It actually, the research shows it creates new neural connections, right? It boosts your immune system. It literally, right, shifts your thinking. It reduces negativity. It boosts optimism. It enhances feelings of well-being. It restores homeostasis, which is that optimal resting point for mental and physical health. I love this quote from Joe Dispenza. This is not a time in history, this is a time in history when not only do we want to know, but we want to know how, right? So you can do this, right? Don't just think that you can, that, you can do this. If I can do this, you can do this, right? So how, right? What we do in mental health these days, in these trauma resiliency times, we support you in finding your own unique way to improve your mental health and well-being. And I hope by now that you're getting a picture of what you need to do, right? So once you understand what you're doing, you can do more of what you're doing that's working, right? And then you can feel more empowered in what you're doing as well. So we can't talk about mental health without talking, well, we can't talk about stage 3 integrating trauma healing without talking about self-care, right? So this is some more real talk. Self-care isn't all bubble baths, unicorns, and rainbows, right? Being your authentic self heals trauma, and that takes courage. So these are the hard truths about self-care. You'll disappoint some people when you prioritize your self-care. It's going to happen, right? 2, self-care often means doing what you don't feel like doing in the present moment to benefit future you, right? It's not just bubble baths and face masks. 3, your boundaries will scare some people. You gotta be okay with that and let them go. So don't neglect yourself taking care of someone else. You don't owe anyone your time, a quick text back, or emotional support when you need to be giving it to yourself first. 5, neglecting yourself to take care of somebody else may seem like an act of love, but giving from a place of emptiness only leads to resentment towards the other person and eventually towards yourself. 6, self-care requires letting go of relationships, habits, and choices that are familiar but no longer serve you. 7, it means being honest with yourself, especially when the truth is hard to admit, right? And self-care is hardest to do when you need it the most, okay? So keep going. You can do this. So think about which of these truths about self-care resonates most with you. And if you want to, take a few minutes to journal or write in the workbook. So it's not enough to know how, right? We want to know, or to know that you can, you want to know how, right? So let's practice some skills. I'm going to show you some fun things to try. Mindfulness, self-compassion, right? Those are important. So we're talking about cross-lateralization. The right and left parts of your brain begin to work together. The brain makes new connections, and that's what we're talking about with neuroplasticity. And this helps heal the brain from the impact of trauma, the various types, whether it's a small t, big T, cumulative, acute, whatever it might be. It all adds up to the same. So these are exercises for neuroplasticity, and I will do them along with you while we watch this video together, okay? Okay, tap and sweep. And then you switch, tap and sweep. Switch, tap and, yeah, talk and do this. Number 2. Okay, and we switch back and forth. and faster if you can. Obviously, you can see that I'm making a lot of mistakes. So triangle circle. You want to draw a circle in the air with one hand and a triangle with the other. And then eventually you're going to switch. Okay, how many can you do without messing up? So this is to help your brain train itself out of depression, particularly. Here we go, rock, paper, scissors with yourself while you let your dominant hand beat your other hand. So this is a lot of thinking. And then you're supposed to switch, right? Okay, so non-dominant, my left hand gets to win. And you know what? I've done this exercise a million times. This is the first time I ever got that part of it. So, excuse me. So this is the infinity. You can raise both arms and you're just swinging them. So you can do this one just with a finger, but you can do it big, moving your waist and your hips, whatever you like. You don't have to if you can't stand. If you're just sitting, you can absolutely just do it with your 2 fingers, really slow and big if you want. Okay, so this one, often you need to be standing to do it. So you stretch your arms out, right? And you're rotating one arm clockwise and the other arm is counterclockwise. And then you switch. So remember, if you've been struggling with depression, you feel like, man, I don't even want to exercise. You can do this sort of stuff. And it's called cross-lateralization. So give it a try. So we're going to talk now about the self-compassion exercise, okay? So self-compassion combines 3 things: mindfulness, calming humanity, and kindness, right? So mindfulness is that idea that we're being mindful that this is a moment of suffering, right? And then the common humanity is that, hey, everyone suffers, right? Like I'm not the only one. I'm not alone in this, right? And then the kindness is, what are the kind words that you say to yourself in this moment, okay? So we're going to combine our gesture from session 1 with our encouraging words from session 2, right? And that's our self-compassion practice. So we have the go-to gesture, hands over the heart, right? And some of the language that I'll use for myself is I will say things to myself like, I'm not alone when I feel really upset. I'm not the only one, you know, this is like really out of control, but a lot of people feel upset right now about things like this. I'm not alone. I'm not the only one is generally some of the language, right? And I'll sit with that, right? Oh my God, it's so frustrating, but I'm not the only one, right? And then I will tap into those words of encouragement. What would I say to a friend? And I'll try to say that to myself, right? In that moment, right? It's okay to be upset, man. It's okay to be mad. You're going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. There's nothing happening. Your nervous system is just acting out. Everything's fine. So that is a self-compassion break. Remember, these strategies that we're using, they're quick, right? They're quick and easy. They're not meant to be difficult. The difficulty is actually using them when you're really spinning or feeling out of sorts, or just like, you know, you've called 5 friends and you can't stop talking about it. Try to dial into your self-compassion practice, then it's a little more difficult. So session 3 highlights. We talked a lot about neuroplasticity, the idea that neurons that wire together, fire together. We talked about the idea of a state versus a trait, right? A personality state versus a personality trait, that you're in the state of dysregulation rather than it being who you are, right? We talk about growing your sense of self. Authenticity takes courage, right? And we also talked about gratitude, how it's actually a stoplight to that reflective brain, you know? It's a great way to help yourself downregulate your nervous system, and also a great way, just in general, to strengthen your parasympathetic nervous system. So the first step of change is to be aware of our own limiting beliefs, right? And sometimes we can't see our limiting beliefs because we're too dysregulated, or we're caught in a cycle of habitual dysregulation, right? So I'll give you an example. For my clients who are very dysregulated, they're often blaming other people and circumstance, and they're often not able to sort of get out of that one negative mindset. And then, so we just regulate. I listen to them, I validate, I normalize, I just let them know that it's okay to be that upset and that it's normal to be that upset. And I don't try to talk them out of it. I just support them. And then eventually you get to the place where they're like, wow, this thing that I'm going through, it's like, sometimes I feel like this and sometimes I feel like that. And then what I start noticing is they're talking about it, and then I'm recognizing their dysregulated thinking and their regulated thinking, and then I'm pointing that out, right? And then they're starting to see it more. And then when they get to the stage 3 point, they're really aware when they're doing those faulty thinking techniques. They know what the limiting beliefs are, and they're smashing through them in that session, or in that stage 3 place, right? So stage 3 healing, right? It's worth going there. But what I want to remind you as well is that you will go back and have to strengthen your foundational stage 1 game. Remember, it's like you want to go up the pyramid, up the hierarchy, right? So you have to grow your regulation strategies often, right? There's different regulation strategies. You might have a few, you need to grow them, and then you make more sense of things, and then you are more authentic and more authentic and more authentic, right? So what we hope you understand, right? What we hope you understand as therapists, and what we hope you understand as helping professionals, right? Is that dysregulation affects you physically, right? Mentally and emotionally. So this is why a dysregulated nervous system leads to physical and mental health problems, okay? So it takes patience and persistence to heal from trauma. You want to start where you are, you want to use what you have and do what you can, all right? It takes time to learn how to regulate your emotional experience. So start small, make small changes every day, pick 1 or 2 or 3 strategies that you like, use them, and then add another one, okay? You can do it. But you have to practice. You have to practice. It's not going to happen unless you practice. So I want to leave you with this story. You may or may not have heard it before. It's a tale of 2 wolves. An old Cherokee's teaching his grandson about life. A fight's going on inside of me, he says to the boy. It's a terrible fight, and it's between 2 wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. He continued, the other is good. He is joy, peace, love, and hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too. The grandson replied, which wolf will win? The old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed. Survival thinking versus thriving. So again, sending love to everyone who's trying their best to heal from things that they don't discuss. And that is the end of video number 6. So now you know about stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 healing, and sort of the idea of why each stage is important and unique and what's involved, and a little bit of the science behind it, right? So in video 7, we're going to talk about your healing path. I'm going to we're going to deepen our understanding a little bit in video 7. And then video 8, we're going to continue talking about your healing path. And we're going to do some assessments of the different stages of trauma healing, right? And stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and see where you might be at. So see you in those videos.